The opinions made in this video do not necessarily coincide with that of Imaginary Goddess, or anyone else for that matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey guys, Ben Wheeler, the Mercenary King here, with the saying of the day. Nothing pleases me more than the lamentations of the women, and the destruction of their menfolk, and the loot I take from their burning cities. Alright guys, I guess that's it for the state of play. No. Alright guys, I just came back from Chicago. Well, not just, but it happened less than a week ago. And I didn't do too well. I got knocked out in the fourth. It might amuse a few of the more trolly aspects of us that I got out in the same sort of round that I got out the last time. A lot of fun here. Basically, I get to the fourth round and then something happens. I get grade stuck, or I get triple critted, or I make a misplay, which is what happened in the first time I went up to Chicago. And then I'm out. So I made it, less than 50%, because it's like 49% if you make it to the fifth one or something like that. I don't know. And that's sort of disappointing to me, especially since I've been trying it for a long time, and I've been knowing a lot of things. And I just sort of think I'm going to talk about sort of what I learned today, or Saturday. And it's not anything stupid like friendship is a real answer, you shouldn't strive for championships, and it's so much bullshit. Anyone tells you it's not worth striving to win anything because you won't win it is stupid. They don't have your best interests at heart, they don't care about you as a person or a man. And because most of my guys are men, I'm talking to you men folk, you women folk, you can enjoy it if you want to. I ain't gonna stop you, but you're not my main audience. They don't have your best interests at heart here. They don't understand that competition is what drives men. More than anything else, you get into a competition with your best friend, your brother, your cousins, your co-workers, your second uncle twice removed on your mother's side. Some sort of competition point is. And it gets you going. Partly because it gives purpose. This deck, Mega Colony, is tied to me in a way. It is the strongest of my decks in the sense that I'm the most skillful with it. I can beat out Savas and Lambros. I can almost beat this one guy with this Docs deck. I can fight off Shadow Paladins with it. And with it I can compete against decks that I just will not spend the money on. Well, admittedly, PBA seems to be a good investment since it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But at the same time, what sort of deal is it when you can buy a nuke and beat some poor scrub with a Royal Trial deck? Though, quite frankly, you should be able to beat up some poor scrub with the Royal Trial deck with PBA. Holy crap. Come on. If that's all he has. There was nothing wrong with my personal skill. The first and second games I won. The first game, I just crushed my opponent. She got grade stuck. She didn't really know how to use the deck. She completely forgot that she can ride over a stunned unit. Second game went likewise, except the person actually understood what they were doing in a much more in-depth way and understood what Mega Colony does to a person. My third opponent got me with Shadow Paladins. I made a misplay turn 3 that hit me turn 4. I put out a 10k guard so I could get off Machining Destroyer when I really should have used Jaggy's Devil because he had plenty of cards in hand, and then kept him at 3 for a little bit of a slower run so that he wouldn't get the break right off. Besides that, he overused his counterblast, and honestly, if I had been a bit smarter there, I could have won that. The fourth game I was great stuck at 2, and they had Lambros and they had Tidal Assaults. And I think that should be self-explanatory for quite a few things there. So one of the things I figured out is that really Mega Colony either needs a drawing mechanic that will show up in the next set with Earth Dreamer, which can be sent back into the deck for 2 cards. So at the beginning of your opponent's turn, you can draw up to 6 cards, 8 cards if you're willing to be just overloading on it. But of course, that might be a little bit too much for your deck, if you know what I mean. But Colony will be running into deck management issues in the future, which is something I've never thought I would say out loud. With Earth Dreamer and the like, I can put up a defense and an offense at the same time. Machining is moving more towards the Superior Calling from Soul, and there's a combo you can do with Machining Worker, and which, when it's put onto a rearguard circle from anywhere, you can stand a unit, and then you stand one of your units, and then you can send it into the Soul for Machining Scorpion Mark II's ability to stand something else and stun something on the opponent's side. So you get a full common, and you still get Machining Scorpion's full ability. And honestly, I'm going to take this deck to England, and I happened to be in England at the time of the Manchester Regionals for Europe. All England should be there, which is going to be fun. And I'm gonna try it out. I got a Mega Colony deck basically worked out. It's got 21k columns in it. It stuns like the dickens, and it gives me plenty of card advantage for those stuns. I also have a variant with Draw for Mega Colony. This tournament has taught me that I need to relax a bit more. That I need to avoid tunnel vision, and that I need to focus on my end game a little bit better. You might say, but Ben, you don't really need to. You just wear the enemy down. No. All I do is my big thing. No. What if those 4 cards they have in their hand are literally just enough to defeat you? What if they had kept 2 Quintet Walls, because they're 2/4 for perfect shield somehow, and those 2 Quintet Walls are going to be just shoved up your a-hole to stop your twin PBA drives because they happen to hit enough zeros to block it. And then you discover yourself you have no field, you only have 4 cards in hand, and he's coming at you pretty hard there, Slick. I'm going to go to the next one. I'm going to go to the one after that, and I'm going to keep going until I no longer enjoy Vanguard or something happens to me so that I can't do it anymore. Either one's always possible. I still love Cardfight Vanguard, though, and I'll continue with it. Didn't rule shark. I did rule shark somebody, but only in a vague sense that he forgot to activate ability Diablo, which is Counterblast 1 during the main phase before the attack phase. Come on. Counterblast 1 during the main phase, eat 3, it gets plus 10, Counterblast and flip, it gets 10k and a crit. And he didn't do that during his main phase, and I called him out on it, prevented it. Hey there, you're the one who actually recognized me. I don't remember your name, but I don't really remember other people's names all that often. It was an enjoyable fight, and it's a pity I lost it. Hope to see you again sometime in the future, the dank, dark future. Stride-wise, I saw a lot of people striding, and pretty much it was game over anytime I saw a Lambros, but other times people showed up with, say, PBA, PBD, or any other stride, and I quite frankly just laughed at them, because usually I had a perfect shield or I had saved enough damage so that I could just take something to the face, which is still a very good strategy for many of these things. I've realized in my own deck that this guy's not nearly as useful as he is, Machining Locust, which exchanges out a thing for a thing. He does work well when he's superior called by Machining Stag Beetle. I'm sorry, not Machining Stag. Well, yes, technically by Machining Stag Beetle, but also by War Sickle on the line. Why am I sort of talking about my deck? Because my deck's in... You cannot disconnect my deck from the tournament. What you played at the deck is the deck that you... At the tournament is the deck that you should have the most hope in. People showing up all over the place with PBA, and I heard some people like, yeah, I got this deck just for the tournament, I'm going to rock with it. Well, I saw those same people get kicked out turn 3. Sure, the first round's the easiest because you're facing hundreds of people who are simply bad, or they got grade stuck or whatever. Mike Heisley's confused so many people, they didn't think I was playing Mega Colony. You know, that is easy to defeat. Like, several of my friends were knocked out by turn 3 or 4 simply because they got grade stuck, or they lost, or their deck just wouldn't work, or wouldn't give them that crit they always gave them. Something happens to decks there, and I haven't figured out why yet. Maybe we're too eager, competitive to focus on our shuffling. Maybe we're not quite doing certain behaviors that we would otherwise do. It could be any number of things, honestly. But something changes there. It's the same stuff that makes it magical, I bet, but the same stuff that makes good players a little worse and good players a little better. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the decks there and tiers and stuff like that when I talk about a article that came up in ultrarealitygames.com that was actually very terrible. I'm going to talk about my Claret Sword Dragon deck and the changes I'm going to make for it in the future. I'm going to end this sort of section with just a statement that if you don't go with friends, you're going to enjoy this thing a lot less. I'm going to enjoy going to England because I'm in England, and if I lose, I can spend the day in Manchester before heading to England on a 9:05 train. But if it's closer to home, bring some buddies, bring some friends. It makes the drives easier, it makes the time easier. A friend of mine and I, we just started fighting for the next 5 hours while we waited for other people to get out. You know, to lose and all that jazz. One of my friends, Vash, I think, no, not Vash, that's another one. Dang, I keep forgetting his name. Law, there we go. Law actually got really far with his Sanctuary Guard deck, which is, you know, even though it's, you know, maybe tier S, it's still an unusual pick. One that hasn't taken off in America as it has in Japan, partly because we have so few games. It's just alternate reality and you know, the regionals. Partly because we are a giant ass country that is multiple times larger than Japan, so our fan base is actually spread out a lot more besides being lesser. In the sense that, you know, there's just fewer of us. That's okay. There's always next year, right? And I think I'll enjoy it next year as I did this year. Alright, I'm going to cut this off for now, and we'll go to the next section. State of play. Part 2. Deck profile. Ancient Chinese proverb. Who smelt it, dealt it. Ho ho ho. Stupid. Anyway, what I'm going to talk about today is my Claret Sword deck. I combine Claret Sword up with Mordred, along with some Revenger stuff, but honestly I'm going to make some changes as soon as Set 4 comes out, and I decided I'm just going to get ahead of it now while I can, and then focus more on, you know, sort of the Set 4 stuff later. You're hearing Cake the Distance in the background. For the next one, I will put on Waiting for the Bus by Satellite High. The previous one was down on the west coast by Zoo and something or other. I swear, Cat, if you mess this up, I'm going to be so angry. Let's talk about our Cards. Why are you paying for attention, cat? You've ignored me for the past weekend. You've ignored me for the past weekend. Oh, stay there. Alright, so our starter is Promising Jewel Knight David, Generation Break 1. When you eat it for something, retire it for the unit's ability. It costs as 2. How does that work? Put your ass on my feet. How does that work? Well, Cleric Sword eats 2 units for an ability. Namely, he gets plus 10k in a crit. Our Geyser uses 2 units for an ability. Other people uses 2 or 3 units for an ability. Hey, everyone's using units for ability. It's what the cool kids do, David. Don't you want to be a cool kid too? And so he counts for 2, the little tryhard. People call him the Hoffman or Hasselhoff, that sort of thing. Because he apparently is some sort of David Hasselhoff thing. I don't know. I was never a fan of David Hasselhoff. Pop culture both disturbs and scares me. 4 Howls, draw a unit into soul plus 3k to a unit. I actually don't much care for this card. And the only reason I don't run 12 crit is because there isn't really a good choice here besides a generic crit. If given the choice, I would run Taboo Starvader. There's a Taboo something or other Starvader. Taboo Demonic Mage Kafir. Put this unit into the soul, and it's a grade 0 crit. When your Vanguard unit attacks, if it's a Claret sword in the name somewhere or other, in other words, if you stride over it, or if it's, Claret sword attacking, you may pay the cost. If you do, draw a card, choose a Vanguard plus 5k until end of battle. Honestly, I would use him for when Claret sword actually attacks, rather than anything else, because of certain combos I'll describe in a bit. Claret Sword right now is a little weak. He doesn't have many combos compared to like BDR or PBA, BDD, and really he does need a little bit of help, and I think that will do it. Besides that, there's so much draw here. I don't need this thing, and the plus 3k doesn't do anything in this deck or any of the decks I have right now. Giving plus 8 to something doesn't change numbers. It doesn't. Plus 3 to something doesn't change numbers. Depending on how you do it. 4 crit. I chose Best Arts because I can choose Best Arts because it's not depending on any sort of clan counterblast. Best Art heal. I just like the Revenger heal. Maybe the which one is a bit better? I don't know. I like this one. Stop judging me. Alright, let's talk about my grade ones. 4 Revenger Perfect Shields. Why the Revenger Perfect Shields? I don't have enough Karma Collectors. Also, I paid a lot of money for these. I'm getting my usage out of them. By gum. 2 Sword Breakers. Why 2 Sword Breakers? Because that's all that's needed. By the way, these can guard rear guards, not perf pluses. Soul Blast 1. This unit is placed on R from deck. Shadow Paladin Vanguard, and may pay the cost if you do draw a card. Basically, an example is Claret Sword. Counterblast 1 during your turn when it's unit stride. You may play the cost if you do Counterblast 1. Search your deck for 1 grade 1 or less card. Call it to rear guard plus 2k until end of turn. This becomes an AK booster. It does things. It gives you cards. It counts an AK. It's the perfect sacrifice target for something like PBDDD, or Aura Geyser or whatever if they killed off the Hasselhoff. That pun was intentional. I'm sorry. Actually, it's just a rhyme. It's not even a pun. That's the sad thing. Otherwise, they're pretty useless. If you have to stride, and you've got 2 of these in hand, and you already have a grade, I'm sorry, not stride, G-assist, you've already got a grade 1, this is like grade 1 to grade 2, or grade 2 to grade 3, whatever. Spend 2 of these, if you got them both in your hand. They're not going back into the deck ever, so just use them, like they're supposed to, the whores. Is this an angel? Yes, it is straight up an angel, evil angel, not to be confused with the Black Ravers, who were recently captured by Claret Sword, she's been around since set 15. With Bloodmaster, who sadly doesn't get any use. Because he's bad. Counterblast 2 to draw 2 for Pete's sake. Discard a Shadow Paladin grade 3 and search for Mordred when it's placed on Rearguard Circle. If you have a Shadow Paladin Vanguard. Which Mordred, you ask? Why, this one. Just wanted to make sure you guys knew. Basically, if I've got a Claret Sword, I spend it for a Mordred. And with the next one, I search out Claret Swords with that Mordred. It's a vicious cycle that removes grade 3s. Because I run for the Stride Fodder, I don't need grade 3s. Stride Fodder. For Cherishing Knight, Branwen. What does Cherishing Knight Branwen do? She basically, when you stride, you can pay this unit and select a grade 3, or when it's put on Rearguard Circle, reveal a grade 3, search for Claret Sword, and then discard a card. Honestly, best use for draw triggers is to summon out Claret Sword with that. But with this deck, either ride is good, but Mordred is a little bit better. So, you know, sometimes I do them both, sometimes I discard it. Honestly, it's something I do just sort of. However, this will, like, yeah, I'll talk about what I'm going to do in a little bit. I'm going to cover the deck first, because it is a good deck, just so you guys know. It's not like PVA or anything like that, but it is a lot of pressure from a lot of things along with some early gains. Like Tar2, Counterblast 2, when this unit is placed on Vanguard Rearguard Circle, if you have a Shadow Paladin Vanguard, you may pay the cost. If you do, search for one grade 1 or less Revenger, same column as this unit shuffle deck. Let me see here. She summons out one of these for Counterblast 2, and then I discard a grade 3 for a Mordred. Thinning the deck out super fast. That's what she's good for. She's a little bit expensive, but honestly, with some of the changes that you can make with Shadow Paladins coming set 4, she can become not very expensive at all. You can mitigate those losses once you hit G-Break. 4. Dark Knight Maiden Maka. Used to be, she basically got a reprint, same person, same deal. G-Break 1, when this unit is boosted, Counterblast 1, summon a grade 1, call it to Rearguard Circle, shuffle deck. You can summon a Blackwing Swordbreaker, you can summon one of these, you can summon one of these. Guess what? They're all good choices. I don't know why I laughed there. That's all she does. Yeah. She's not really a good choice for a lot of things that kill on attack unless you're running PBDDDDD. Partly because, you know, you can summon out a grade 1, which is a Swordbreaker, get more card advantage. But it's more of the fact that, honestly, since so few of this stuff requires Revengers, you can just use her however. She's just too good not to play. She summons things during your attack step. I mean, there's just a lot that goes on for her, and that's all I can say. She's just super value. Yeah, I wish I could be a bit more Erudite. So because I do have Counterblast problems, and because there isn't really another good grade 2 out there that I really can use, no point in hitting 19k anymore. You might as well go for 21. Who has a 4k defense these days, am I right? Well, certain Angel Feathers will, because they're kind of dicks, but not in the bad way, though. When this unit attack hits a Vanguard, if you have a Shadow Paladin, unflip a damage. Vanguard or Rearguard Circle. But one of the fun things I like to do is have like one in the Vanguard Circle, put her, summon something else out here, and then attack with the Vanguard for 14k. They almost always take it. I'm going to be replacing this and Maka with, not Maka, Tar2 with something in set 4. Boop. For Mordred, the most useful card in all of Shadow Paladins, it is a break ride. You might ask me, why don't I run the Unlimiter? Well, because that would use up a slot that I need for Shadow Lancer, so I can guarantee this guy. Counterblast 1, when the unit break rides, it gets plus 10k, summon something, give it plus 5k. Call it to rear guard. Yeah, that's pretty good. Grade 2 or less, by the way, because apparently calling a grade 3 is a little bit overpowered. Or something, I don't know. Too much deck thinning. It ends games when PBA break rides on it, unless the guy's stupid and didn't damage the opponent at all. It really works well with Claret Sword. What does Claret Sword do? G-break 2, kill 2 of your own rear guards, plus 10k and a critical. There's not a lot of synergy with that thing except for all the murder. But with like Tar 2 and the like, you can get an easy column which will, kill things. And be good for killing things. So when you break ride, it becomes a 30k crit 2, and then you have a booster, so it could hit like 38 crit 2. That's super good numbers, perfect shield numbers. It's stride numbers. Some strides never hit that high. So, it's good for a late game finisher. That's why I have Mordreds in here. You can stride on the Mordreds, and then you can break ride for a potential kill. Problem is, there's no way to really mess with the opponent's guard. His secondary stride break ability is Counterblast 1, summon a grade 1 or less when stridden, plus 2k until end of turn. And of course, you want to summon Blackwing Swordbreaker or the Stride Fodder or the, Shadow Lancer. Yeah, that's all I can say about him. He does a lot of work as a Vanguard, but he's not as dynamic as others. He likes having his army and doing work. Grim Dark Knight, Grim Recruiter. I think he was like, he was something. What was he? A crit trigger or something? I don't know. Or a draw trigger even. He looks familiar and the name's familiar. I just can't remember. I think it was the draw trigger actually. Was you attack, it's a Vanguard, search for a grade 1. Opponent shouldn't let this hit. Same rules as Gallblade and Campbell apply. They do let it hit though. Counterblast 1. Sorry, choose a Revenger, kill it. If you have a Revenger of the same, if you have a Vanguard, a Heart Revenger, in other words, Mordred, search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 or less Revenger in the card name. Call it to Rearguard Circle. That unit gets plus 3k. Basically, you summon out Shadow Lancer, so you get another grade 3. I mean, it's okay. Nothing here hits higher than 9, so doesn't matter too much. That'll change. Aura Geyser. 2 is pretty much guaranteed for every Shadow Paladin deck. It brings up Jing Break 2 instantly, and it is actually a really good card in general. Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, unflip an Aura Geyser. And by the way, needing 2 at least does keep the value up. There'll be a card that needs 3, the value will go up. Choose 2 rear guards, in other words, or 1 David Hasselhoff. Retire it. If you pay that cost, reveal the top 2 cards of the deck. They get plus 5k for every grade 1 or less, revealed that way until end of turn, and then they get put into the hand. That's pretty good. That's value. Yeah. It's just value. I don't know how else to put it like that. You will guaranteed have 5 cards at the end of turn, not discounting the other abilities that do go off. By the way, this is a once per turn. Forgot to mention that. And let's see here. This is on attack, so it's pretty sweet. Honestly, I run this on Mordred if I can, but if I'm lacking rearguard presence, I usually play a Grim Recruiter, especially if I want to weed out a Perfect Shield early. Finally, 4 DD PBD. Dark Dragon, Phantom Blaster, Diablo. I actually had a build where I combined up a lot of Phantom Blaster Diablos with Claret Sword and used Phantom Blaster Diablo to activate blaster abilities. It didn't end well. Cannon Blast and unflip a Phantom Blaster Diablo from the G zone and turn it face up. If the number of face up cards are 2 or more, it gets plus 10k in a crit. Eat 3 of your rear guards or a rear guard and 1 David Hasselhoff. Your opponent can choose 2 rear guards, retire them. If they do not, they cannot block. Funnily enough, I've taken this to the face and lived. They're like, yeah, you have to kill 2 or die. And I was at 3 damage. I'm like, okay, crit me. Didn't crit me. The guy was running like 6 draws. It was stupid. And I've done that for people with a lot more dangerous stacks. And it's like, sure, whatever, you know. And if you don't do it during the main phase, of course, you know, hey, you don't get the abilities. Thank God it's 1 per turn. Otherwise, someone will just like do it so you have to retire 6. And it's like, huh. Well, okay. On the other hand, by the way, if you run like special interceptors, especially the ones that get plus 15k with that Shadow Paladins, Royal Paladins, and Link Joker have, you can block them for 41k. It's hilarious, but often doesn't work because they usually have a booster. Ah well. So that covers most of the deck. Let me talk about the changes. So this slot is going to be changed. 4 grade 1s. I'm bringing these down to 3. And those are going to be replaced by Dark Quartz Dragon. Dark Quartz Dragon is looks like a rare? I want to say a rare. Whoops. Let's see, Mega Y. Once you is placed on Rearguard Circle from anywhere, if you have a grade 3 or greater Claret Sword Dragon, choose one of your Vanguards, and this unit and that unit gets plus 3k. Guess what? Claret Sword becomes a 41k crit too if I do that. So yeah, those are what these 4 will come in, and it's a Generation Break 1, but it'll really shine with a certain grade 2. Dark Pride Dragon, in which case I would remove these 4. Because that combo with Shadow Lancer is no longer valid if I don't have Shadow Lancers. None of these things are Revengers anymore. When this unit is put into the drop zone from Rearguard Circle, if you have Rearguard Circle for a unit's ability, let me just see here. Let's see here. You have a grade 3 Claret Sword. Search your deck for 1. Cool. Dark Quartz, call it to Rearguard Circle, shuffle deck. If you did call a unit, unflip 1 damage. Unflip 1 Counterblast. There's going to be a lot of Counterblasts and flipping, and I don't really know if I shouldn't run something that uses Counterblast in the deck, just because he unflips so much I don't want anything to go to waste. But I haven't figured that out yet. I'll figure it out sometime in the future. Because let's say I stride this with Aura Geyser. Sure, I spend 2 Counterblasts using various abilities, but that's out of 5 and nothing else is really using besides the strides. Or even Break Ride. Stride, there's still 3 Counterblasts. It's a little bit of heavy, but it's still not breaking any banks. Anyway, so basically, a potential thing combo to do will be with the 4th card I'm going to talk about in just a second. This is Sturdy Knight Grozny. G-Break 1, when this unit is grade less, then this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle plus 3k until end of turn. And of course I'm going to run 4. What am I going to do with that? Well, let's say I've got a column right here, a Claret Sword, a whatever, nothing here, a whatever, and a whatever. First off, ability time. Okay, first off, let's say that this is my stuff. I don't have the ability to stride. but I might as well use out some abilities. I play this here. Ability goes off. Plus 3k here, plus 3k here. This gets plus Grozny gets plus 3k. Whoop. Okay, good. Sorry. Um, remember this is Dark Quartz. Hold on. Sorry about that. I might have been a bit off center camera or whatever. Dark Quartz Grozny. That's a 22k column right there. So let's say that I do something stupid like this with 2 Dark Prides. I eat the 2 Dark Prides for an ability. Boop. I summon out 2 Dark Quartzes. Plus 3k, plus 3k, plus 6k. So this column has gotten plus 12k. What does it turn it into, kids? 28k. Good job, yay! Yeah, that's a pretty strong column right there. This column's hitting for 9, 20k, 30k, 20k, 30k crit 2. Let's say I broke road. 40k crit 2. And then another booster, 50k. Wow. That's 50k crit 2. That's perfect shield or nothing. And guess what? I could do, since I ate for his ability, I'm sure that I can pull something off. Like summoning, say, where is she? Amaka here. So, I swing, I attack, I summon out my last thing here, plus 3k, plus 3k, plus 3k, which turns this into a 31k column. But hey, let's say we summon this guy out with the Break Ride. So this is a 36k column. This is a 53k column, because remember, this guy gives this plus 3k over here. I inflict 2 damage thanks to, killing those 2 innocent Dark Quartz dragons, which means that, that's a pretty powerful idea. The combos in this deck are much simpler than they could be, but they're still fantastic, really solid. And of course, with strides, it just works out. Aura guys are, eating the Hasselhoff or, eating 2 units just like what I did, does provide a potential for a lot of power. However, do expect it to be perfect shielded. Alright, that's enough for my deck profile. I'm going to move on to the third piece. In victory or defeat, there's only pain. No, I'm not good at the sayings business. I'm a failure. So, anyway, but not as much as this guy. So, apparently ARG has their own Cardfight Vanguard log. And by the way, I have my Gold Paladin deck here because reasons that I'll make very, very evident as soon as I start talking about this terrible article. They released an article by one Michael Cooksey, who has his own picture as a avatar thing, which I've always felt does not work very well, especially when his haircut's so white. What am I kidding? Wait, I'm a white guy. Oh God. No, okay. I'll not have any ad hominem here. It's a terrible article. The fellow is trying to break it down basic for opponent for newbies. But the problem is he's not doing it well, and he's not using any of the basic language that newbies really need to be baptized in, before they can start having the mindset for it. If you want to train a newbie, you don't just say, okay, let's talk about guard and advanced guarding and whether or not you should take a PBA to the face when you're at 5 damage. The answer is always no. You do whatever you can do block it, even if you have to rely on them not getting a trigger. Which is funny business, because PBA will hit triggers. But sometimes they don't, and those feelings are so beautiful. Basically, he's trying to talk about meta. He's trying to talk about things And really, it's just a bad article, unfocused. Each one of the things he talks about could be its own deal. That maybe he could do pretty well on if he sort of divided up into smaller chunks. So let's talk a bit more in detail. Meta and tiers is I'm reading directly from it. I'm not paid by anyone to do this, just so you guys know. Meta and tiers is something you hear a lot about when you first get into card games. When I started playing, I was coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, so I understood sadly your average Vanguard player, which, by the way, the average Vanguard player is from Yu-Gi-Oh, at least in St. Louis, and honestly, a lot of dudes I have talked to have played Yu-Gi-Oh in the past. They understand what tier is. I just thought I'd say it. It's like they evolve from Yu-Gi-Oh to Cardfight, and then eventually they have the enough money as a young adult for the crack cocaine that is Magic the Gathering, or they just stick with Cardfight. So let's see here. But like a well-guarded secret or something, and I'm here to demystify. It's never been a secret. If you ask someone who's the best deck in the game, they say PBA, they say Docs, they say maybe Sanctuary Guard if they understand, Sanctuary Guard enough to understand. Jewel Knights, they'll say something that is reasonable. Aqua Force, right now probably the four strongest decks in the meta are the ones I just mentioned: Aqua Force, Shadow Paladins, PBA specifically, not PBD or PBDR. It's PBA, or not PBR. It's not Phantom Blast or Diablo. It's PBA. Man. Lambros is also strong, and honestly, without Lambros, Aqua Force decks will be not that great. It is a bit too strong. Docs as I call it. And then there's a fifth tier S that nobody talks about, and that's whatever somebody's best at. Everyone has a deck they are simply the best at, and that gives them power and bonuses and whatnot over other players who are not playing their best deck. Now, if two people have their best deck and they just go at it, it leads to some of the best games you'll ever watch, especially if it's two powerful decks or the guy who knows how to play the weaker deck really knows how to go toe-to-toe with something stronger. Anyone can answer it. It's no mystery. There's no demystifying. If people come into the game, they often ask, hey, what's a good deck? Or I've got unlimited money to spend, what's the best deck? Or, hey, what's a good and cheap deck? In which case you tell them. You tell them straight. The best deck's Shadow Paladins, but I can get you a good deck for $100 as Tachikaze. Or a good deck for $100 as something. There's a lot of things to say here. Let's skip down. So he talks about tiers. They have blah blah blah. He talks about how fast they are. Now that's actually a good point. Lambros is one of the fastest decks out there. Not because Lambros shows up super fast, but because of Tidal Assault. Without Tidal Assault, they'd be up a creek without a paddle and waiting for G-Break for some of their good shit with Magnum Assault. Sanctuary Guard is very fast, but only because of Sword Main. Without Sword Main, they don't work. It's actually why Sanctuary Guard showed up. They created a Stride Fort as well, Regalier, which gives out power for it for every grade 1 they have, plus 3k. So turning it into like a 25k column or something like that, and all the time though, and that's pretty good. However, here's what he says is tier 1, Sanctuary Guard. No. Sanctuary Guard is not tier 1, PBA is. Why? PBA is the easiest restander ability, period, as long as you have 3 rearguards and 2 Revenger Counterblasts. And not even 2 Revenger Counterblasts, excuse me. You have to kill 3 Revengers, and guess what's in that deck? All Revengers. Lambros probably comes a close second. And then he describes tier 2 as Lambros and PBA, which is ridiculous. Just utterly nonsense. Tier 2 is not. First off, there's already a tier system in place. It's S, A, B, C, D. You know what's at D? Non-stride more anything that doesn't use G-break stuff nowadays that is, otherwise not good. For example, running Master Beetle in a Mega Colony deck, which is Counterblast 3 Limit Break 4, Stun 2, yeah, is bad. Brunhilde is only good in the hands of people who know how to use her. In other words, apparently just me. Because there are top 2 vids with me, Brunhilde versus PBA, and somebody as good as I am, or even a little bit less. I love Brunhilde. She is my wife. So gentle. So meek, so warlike, such a giant spear. He describes tier 3 as Thing Saber, Sing Saber, Dragon, Fate Rider, and Prominence Claire. Prominence Claire is an S-class deck. Thing Saber is an A+, S class deck. S plus class decks are Lambros, Sanctuary Guard, and PBA, with hints of, what was that fourth one? I'm sorry, I'm trying to think here. Docs. Just anything that's been winning in tournaments, not guaranteed, because he makes it sound like if a person shows up with PBA, he'll win. That's utter ridiculousness. I've won decks, I've won tournaments over PBAs. It's not something that is written in stone. If a person's better than the person playing PBA, or if the person playing PBA gets unlucky, or if the person that, there's 1,000 things that could go right for you and wrong for them. It's just that they've got a slightly better deck with more stuff and tools to work with. The best decks out there are not the ones with the most powerful units, but the ones with the best synergy. I always build my Shadow Paladin decks with synergy in mind. My Clarisor deck post set 4 will be amazingly synergistic with nearly everything that we've got there. My Mega Colony deck will be very synergistic, creating a lot of destruction in all the good ways, for it. Just saying. Excuse me. Angel Feather will have a lot more synergy with their drop zone. A lot of decks are moving to a synergistic high point where they can be called better and use what they have that is already powerful, because stunning is very powerful. Flipping things out of the drop zone is very powerful. Their Stride heals, for Pete's sake, people. It heals. That's overpowered. They got top 2 last time at a Grand Prix and got beat out by somebody PBAing them. Same with Royals, a little bit more synergy. When Vanguard and the Leader comes out, we're going to see a lot more interesting stuff and a lot better decks that work with both Seeker and non-Seeker alike. You just got to figure it out. This deck I'm holding into my hand, synergy was added by the G-Break stuff so that everything does something somehow, with a whole host of different abilities. PBA works, Docs works, Lambros works, Sanctuary Guard works because they have the highest synergy in the deck possible. With Sword Me, with the Jewel Knights, with everything else for Sanctuary Guard. Docs with the Overlord support that Kagero has is a little bit too OP. PBA for all the money-making stuff that Bushiroad basically did to make a profit. BDR and BDR Abyss, BDRA, both do a lot of work for a deck. It's good in all the most horrible ways. And that's just S-Class. Let's talk about S plus class. Let's talk about S-Class. S-Class is things, that may work together, but they don't have quite as powerful abilities. Prominence Core is an S-Class because while everything kind of works together, it somehow doesn't work the same. Same with Yggdrasil. Everything works for Yggdrasil in a good Regalia deck. Can't say the same about that, but for some reason a deck like Brunhilde has synergy out the ass, but Yggdrasil doesn't. I don't get it. And this is just talking about the decks themselves. Let's talk about the players. Players can be ranked S-Class. Every player has stats that they can work with. This guy's sort of ignoring that there is a hierarchy among players, and some players stand at the top and others at the bottom. There's people at my level, there's people slightly above me because I'm fairly good. There's people below me because, I'm fairly good. And you just gotta make sure that you're not doing things wrong, that you are maintaining or getting better at your position, forming teams to get to the next level, managing interpersonal relations, getting to other cities that are nearby for other tournaments, and doing immense trades whenever you show up. I'm a high tier player because I have a high amount of trades. I've got high amount of contacts all over the Midwest. I've got rivals, and I can basically throw down with anybody and have a chance of winning. Is it a good chance? I never said that. But for some people it's very good. For other people's it's not. I like to call the people who's not dinner. No, I don't do that. I don't really care. It's all the same to me. I go in every deck, either funny or serious. Let me go back to what this guy's talking about. Partly because his explanation of tier really ticks me off. Because it's like, oh yeah, you can win every time with this deck. No. You give a newbie a PBA deck, and I will laugh at them, romp the stuff. Mop the floor with their ashes. I will just raffle stomp them. So will any veteran player. I'm not even saying a good player, a veteran player who has played and beaten PBA, I don't get to practice enough. Probably what it is. Blah, blah, blah. And then he talks about triggers. As everyone knows, there are 16 triggers in the deck, and they do things when you drive check or damage check them. Among other things. And they say he talks about luck and all that jazz, and it's like, it's a resource. Yes, it is. But it's also in how you manage your deck, how you take care of your deck, how you thin your deck, how you, whether or not you just shuffle it all the time like this deck does, or whether you stick stuff at the bottom like this deck does. Take this card. Put this unit into the bottom of your deck, search top 4 for a bluish flame card, reveal it to the opponent, put shuffled back. Putting a crit trigger back into the deck is all well and good, but what happens if you've drawn all 4 Percivals? Well, guess what? Don't use the ability, unless you want to put a crit trigger back into the deck for some stupid reason. It's choices that we make. All of a sudden, I legion in some triggers, I use the crit trigger, I use catch goal, and all of a sudden I have more triggers than I have, grade 1, 2, 3s. That means that I'm going to get my triggers off more than the other person. It's not luck, it's skill. This game is managing your luck, changing the odds in your favor. Scoundrels should play this game, if you know what I mean. Those who understand the reference may laugh up customary 3 times. And then he starts talking about our resources. The deck, your most important resource. Bullshit, your hand is. Your hand, where you play cards from. No, you play cards from your deck with this, Maybe I'm being hard on him. Once you run out of deck, you lose. But your deck isn't always accessible. In Mega Colony, you will never use your deck for anything except for draw. In this deck, this is your hand. All of it. You summon out a Puil, you summon out a Josephus, a Percival, a Aglavale. It doesn't matter. All these cards, get cards from the deck into your hand for fun and shenanigans. Your formations. First off, formations really isn't a word that we use in Vanguard, or at least I haven't seen it used in my circles and on comments and in other articles I have read, or in the Mundi or any other things. Point is, it's not really used. And he says how you attack. Really, that's a whole bunch of bigger subject called order of operations, which is its own section of state of play. Order of operations is how you draw, how you spend your cards, how you do regard attacks, that sort of thing. And I've done it many times, displaying, hey, I've got this hand. Here's how we'll do it. Here's how we'll use it. In previous state of play, anyway, or one of the previous ones, anyway. Your soul when you ride, and the most important resource for some decks. Honestly, your hand is going to be your most important resource all the time, forever, for everything. Dark Irregulars is great, but oftentimes they have trouble maintaining hand. You can get 15 soul in the deck and be ready for a Gilderay next turn, but hey, guess what? The guy killed you because you didn't have enough cards in hand to defend yourself for the next turn. That's a hard reality. Um, let's see here. Damage. Honestly, like the actual resources, your deck, your hand, and your damage are your most important resources that cover all decks. In things like Genesis, your soul is important as a hand, as is Pale Moon for your multiple attacks. Your drop zone is only important in Legion or Grand Blue. And guess what? In Legion, you should turn back 3 all your triggers that you can. Blah blah blah. He talks about resources and management. Did you read Legion random cards? No, you Legion triggers. No shit, Sherlock. Some of the stuff is normal. If you're reading an ARG article about Cardfight Vanguard, I don't know why you wouldn't know some of these things already, because somebody has to take you. Unlike, say, Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh!, it seems that a lot of people who come in the deck are brought in by friends. Now I find a place what makes a good player good. This kind of is the most confusing part of it. Very poorly written and not very well thought out. It's a question a lot of people ask, but few people besides top players can effectively answer. What makes players good? I can answer for you that. Skill times luck. That's it. The higher the coefficient that you can, skill to the power of luck. There we go. Or luck to the power of skill. I haven't really decided which of the two is more accurate yet. Once you understand how to balance your luck and your skill and do it perfectly all the time, you win. That's it. You can't say, oh, it's because I attacked. Well, yeah, it's because you attacked. It's not because you destroyed their tidal assaults. It's because you outdamaged them before they could Lambros. Or it's because you got that miracle heal. Or because you got that miracle crit. Or whatever. There's plenty of things that make a player good. And guess what? It isn't, something mysterious. Okay? If you show up with a lot of luck in this game and you understand the card game, you'll win games. Once you become a veteran. Now, what a veteran is, I'd say a veteran is someone who's played at least 100 games. You'll understand the decks by 20. At least not all decks, just simply your deck. And then by 100, you'll actually start mastering certain aspects of it and become really good at your deck. Now, it's just sort of a rule that says that they spent so much time mastering it. And about the time it takes to play 100 battles, because you don't get better unless you play battles. You can look at the cards all day, but you don't know how they react unless you actually, play them. That's why I'm very excited for Cardfight Online. I hate Cardfight Arena. I hate all the ones that have come out so far, except for Cardfight Online, which was a really cool one with actual things that, like, right-click on it and it does stuff. Oh my goodness. I cannot wait for Cardfight Online to come out. I think I'll probably be in England or something when it happens. Now for my final piece, blah, 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 blah. He has something called the 7-second rule where you make a single play, take 7, and think about it. First off, that's dumb. Just dumb. You should always think about your plays, but let me put it like this. Boop, 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 boop. You have a starting hand of 5 cards, mulligan or not. Because I need, time, I need a mulligan. And honestly, this is a good hand, except for the heal. So let me put it like this. I draw for turn. What play should I make? I'll think about this for a second. No, just play this, for Pete's sake. Once you get to a certain point, you will know what to do instinctively. Am I going second or first? Boom, first. Whatever. Take a damage. Draw. Another catch call. Oh, what plays should I make? Bam. Attack. I'll throw down a 10k to start up my legions and take a damage. I'll draw, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't require great thought here. However, honestly, I made a mistake because I was generalizing. I should play it like this. Why? Because Percival's a good stride unit. Bam. There. That was what you should have thought about. Which grade 3 to run. You don't need to think about what grade 1 to run in that situation or most situations, or what grade 2 to run in most situations, because either you have a 10k defense card or you have a 9k of some general description that you should just play. And then he goes on about some attacks. The opponent has a 10k rearguard, a 9k Vanguard, and a 10k rearguard with a support unit. That's dumb. That's just so dumb of a setup. You should have a 10k defense unit as your Vanguard. Why? Because then the guy who has a 9k rearguard and 11k Vanguard has to spend. You can attack with a 9k rearguard, and he has to do all kinds of stuff to your side units. He has to, attack them, apparently. There are very few units that you should directly attack with your Vanguard early in the game. One of those units is Tidal Assault. Anything else is just kind of worthless, because they either don't do anything, or they're just an attacker, or there's something you should spend your rearguards on, not your Vanguard, because you have to accelerate their damage and, try to actually kill them first before they kill you. He has a support unit. By the way, we don't call them support units, Michael. We call them boosters. Support units is not a linguistic term that we use in this game. We use boosters. Everyone uses boosters. I've never heard anything else. I've never heard support units, and I've been around for about 3 years. First glance, you might say Vanguard to Vanguard, yep, if I get it, and then boost to rearguard if I get a trigger. Yeah, you technically have the support unit, the booster that you have is probably your grade 0, by the way. How do I know that? Well, I might know what I'm doing. Crazy. And then he attacks a rearguard with his Vanguard for some reason, and his 9k to the Vanguard, which is whatever. Because the 9k is a 10k guard at most, and the 5k guard at least. And by the way, you can just intercept for that, because 10k rear guards are useless without boosters and whatnot. He then talks about practice, and that's probably the thing I agree with him the most. And then he talks about some sort of success story where he did very well. Pardon me, I've been farting like a bastard. He talks about Patrick Hoban, who was a Yu-Gi-Oh player, who was very famous for practicing 40 hours a week. Good for him. I wish I could play Cardfight 40 hours a week, but I can't. He was making Gancelot Zenith, and he went for Aglavales, and it made his deck much faster. Yeah, because your deck isn't dependent on strides, it's dependent on limit break. That deck is faster than strides. Limit break, ironically, is now one of the fastest decks, especially if you run unlimiters. So you can just break right into something like Gancelot, and then you can start doing other things like that. Besides that, if you summon out Aglavale with Gancelot's ability, that could be a lot of fun, if you know what I mean. And by fun, I mean a lot more attacks. He also talks, which I actually personally agree with, and absolutely the people I train do, is they play against their own deck, and someone else plays their deck against them. And that's someone, who will teach you things. And he talks about articles. I'm going to finish this up in a second. Alright, finishing this up. Whew, nearly 4 o'clock. So, let's see here. Michael, that was a decent article. I've read worse. You're not crazy like money and all that jazz, but you do need to educate yourself on the terms that are used. As well as sort of be less general about certain things and be more specific in other things. And don't think you understand tiers when you obviously had only looked at what's topping in Japan rather than actually looking at the decks and all decks all the time and sort of figuring things out from there. Certain things are top tier, certain things are not top tier. And guess what? Those 4 decks I stomp on Sanctuary Guard every time I face it. I haven't properly lost to it in an important fight yet. I've knocked people out of the top with fighting Sanctuary Guard, and not with something that's S class, with my Mega Colony, which ironically may be A class or S class right now, thanks to Destroyer. It will certainly be A class when the stuff comes out. Alright, guys, like, comment, subscribe. If you do have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Haven't seen any questions recently. I did intend to do a vid about sort of defense decks and whatnot, but I felt that talking about Chicago will be a bit more important. And I'm going to talk about decks, things like Aquaforce and whatnot later. And something I can give it more justice to. Alright, guys. This has been Ben Wheeler for Imagining a Goddess, the Mercenary King, great, glorious, and full of vinegar and whatever the tiredness hormone is, as I ever am. Alright, have a good night, guys.